Hello, welcome to Jason Millennial. My name is Jason, and I'm here with my friend Nick from Townsend 505.
Hello.
Here with me again to rank the top 10 albums, this time of the year 1963. We've been going through every year since 60, so this is our fourth time doing this. And we did our last one actually not that long ago, so we're going through this pretty nicely at the moment, which is good. We're starting to get to some better years, I think me and Nick would agree, in music, where we're starting to recognize some of these albums and artists and all that. And just to answer anybody's question, me and Nick, we don't remember 1963. We weren't around at that time, but we do listen to music from that time period, so we can, I think, talk about that. But
Yeah.
uh,
still shell shocked when on I think
yeah,
it was on my channel when that happened for
that was on your channel, but yeah. So don't need to ask that question. I'll answer it right now. we do not remember that year personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nick, I always ask, what do you think about 1963? Any thoughts?
This was a really good year for music. Much better than the first 3 years. Especially 1960. This 1960 was not a good year for
That was
music.
rough. Yeah.
61 was okay. 62 it was good. It wasn't like special or anything. There were some really good albums that year, but it wasn't like anything to write home about. This year is great. This is a great year for music. Very, very excited to talk about a lot of the albums of this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I still will say, volume wise, like I still don't have a lot of albums I really like this year. It's still lacking in that. Even putting the top 10 together, there's still some albums like my last two albums aren't really that great. They made it in there just because I couldn't get any other great albums put in my top 10. So it's still the year for me, still struggling to find, 10 plus albums that I really love. But the top, five, six, seven are quite good. So I think the quality of the top albums are probably the best we've had so far. I feel like every year we're getting slightly better album qualities, and certain bands are starting to come in that we really like. Uh, for me, the next year, next year's four, that's when it makes a huge jump, I think, where it's like, okay, there's like 20 albums I think are really good that could get in my top 10. This year, it's like I have 12 albums that I was kind of considering my top 10. So still not a lot of albums, but there are obviously some great ones. The big thing is we get the Beatles. The Beatles are coming into play, which I'm very happy about because now we're getting to a band that my favorite band of all time. So now you're gonna hear a bunch of Beatles. I mean, I think most likely every Beatles album is probably gonna make it into my top 10 right now from this time to 1970. It's gonna be a lot of Beatles. So happy to get to that. I mean, we got Bob Dylan coming in with a classic album. Beach Boys albums are getting better, I think. So I mean, we're getting some really good stuff here. Uh, as far as what happens in 1963, like I said, the big things are Beatles coming out with two albums, Please Please Me with the Beatles, two number one albums in the UK. They haven't come to America yet, but in the UK, they're becoming the most popular band in Europe basically in this year. Beatlemania has hit Europe with that. They put out like four number one singles. I mean, some of the biggest songs of all time. Like She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand and Please Please Me. So yeah, some big things are happening in Europe, kind of there. Rolling Stones they're starting to play music. They haven't put an album out yet, but they're putting out some songs. So they're starting their thing. A lot of bands are kind of starting to form here in the UK. So we're getting ready for the British invasion. Next year, we're going to get the British invasion starting to come. The next few years is going to be pretty big on that. Anyway, so we got all that coming. The big news is March 5th of this year, Patsy Cline dies in a plane crash. Another huge tragedy due to plane crash that we've gotten. And Patsy Cline was probably the most popular country singers of that time. Very tragic during the kind of prime of her time because she's just coming out with like songs like Crazy which was hugely popular at this time and probably one of the most popular country songs of all time that still gets played today on the radio. So a huge loss there with Patsy Cline. Yeah, we get a lot of good debuts. Like I said, we got the Beatles, of course, is the big debut we get here. We got Leslie Gore coming in, which I think she's really good and doing some good stuff. Got a lot of hit songs. The Crystals, another good girl group. I think the Righteous Brothers are coming in now. We're starting to get some Righteous Brothers albums, and yeah. Martha and the Vandellas, another good addition. The Chiffons have some good hits. And Jerry and the Pacemakers also come in from Liverpool during this time period. So in Europe, I guess. Yeah, some pretty good debuts there. Anyways, like I said, I like to go through what were the big albums this year. What are the top 10 selling albums? Number one was the Christmas song by Nat King Cole. Christmas album, number one. And Nat King Cole, I think he had one last year too. So very popular, Nat King Cole this time. Number two, we got an album that I own. Please Please Me. Second best-selling album that year. I know Nick has his album as well. So it's nice to see we actually own an album that made the top 10.
Yeah.
It seems like, yeah, the top 10 are albums that I'm not familiar with or aren't albums that we put in our top 10s. But it's like now we're getting some albums I actually have in my own top 10 or some of the best-selling albums. So now I'm starting to sink in with what was popular at the time, which is nice to see. Number three, you got With the Beatles, another Beatles album. Obviously, Beatles are huge. They hit the second and third albums here. Four, The Free Will and Bob Dylan. Really cool to see Bob Dylan get in here. I was like, oh, wow, that's great. Now we're getting Bob Dylan into the top 10. His Free Will and one of the most influential albums. I think I know the Beatles point to it as being influential on their music, and probably every musician probably listened to that record and was like, wow, this is great. Number five, you got the Andy Williams Christmas album, another Christmas album by another crooner, very popular. Andy Williams, very popular. Seems like I'm seeing his name a lot in a lot of stuff. Number six, we got the very best of Hank Williams, country legend here. Number seven, very, very interesting. We got a comedy album. Unfortunately, a comedy album that doesn't age well. And this is Bill Cosby is Very Funny Fellow, right? So Bill Cosby makes it in the top 10. One of the most popular comedians of all time is now hitting. Unfortunately, does not age well. Getting that top 10. Number eight, we got Elvis Golden Records Volume 3, which I'm guessing that's an album we're going to cover in the Elvis series, right? Yeah. He does all these golden record albums that obviously 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, Elvis is in here. So we'll see when we get to that. Number nine, Patsy Cline's story, which I think is very interesting because Patsy Cline passes away. So I'm guessing her album sale went way up or something due to the death, unfortunately. So that's interesting. Number 10, we get Little Deuce Coupe by the Beach Boys.
Oh, we got a Beach Boy record in there.
Yeah, so we got Beach Boys making the top 10. So it's nice to see we got Beatles, Bob Dylan, Beach Boys. Very happy to see some of those now starting to get into the mainstream of music. The Grammys, this is maybe the worst. I say worst. To me, the 5 albums I could care less about. I mean, again, Grammys are just so off on what the mainstream likes and what the Grammys think is like the best music. The winner for Grammy Album of the Year is the Barbra Streisand album by Barbra Streisand, which I've heard. To me, it's a boring album. I mean, Barbra Streisand, great singer. And this is interesting. 1963. She must have been pretty young at this time. She starts a big movie career as well during this time period. But anyways, so yeah, Barbra Streisand wins. Then we get Bach's Greatest Hits by Ward Swingle and the Swingle Sisters gets nominated for Grammy Album of the Year. We get Days of Wine and Roses and Other TV Requests from Andy Williams. So we got an Andy Williams album. Again, last year I think it was like Moon River and other movie themes or something like that. Now we got TV themes by Andy Williams. Andy Williams, people, or the Grammys love Andy Williams. We got a song called Honey in the Horn by Al Hirt, who's like a jazz trumpet guy. So we got that in here. And then we end with The Singing Nun by Sor Soror. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but someone I never heard of. The Singing Nun, don't know nothing about that album. But I mean, you talk about 5 albums that have no influence on the music industry, as far as I can tell. Or I just can't believe it. When I look at this, I go, "Oh, really? These are the 5 albums the Grammys thinks is the best 5 albums of the year?"
Mm.
I mean,
Like Free Will and Bob Dylan should have been like the Grammy
yes,
winner because it has
that's
like
what I thought.
Blowing in the Wind, and it's like a very respected Bob Dylan album. So that's like a shocker that that's not the Grammy winner.
Yeah, I look at that list. I'm like, I mean, it's like screw the Beatles, screw Bob Dylan, screw the Beach Boys, like all the music people love. I don't get it, but that's the Grammys. All right, now we get to our top 10 favorite albums of 1963. So Nick, start us off with your number 10.
Okay, first album I'm going to talk about today, number 10, I'll Cry If I Want To by Leslie Gore.
Leslie Gore.
Yeah, this is her debut album. And man, she's already off to an amazing start, Leslie Gore. I love this album so much. And I don't think it's as good as the next album, which, spoiler alert, that makes my list as well. But I don't think it's as good as that album. But this album still has a lot of great songs on it. It's My Party, great song. It's my party, and
Yeah,
I'll
big
laugh
hit.
out too.
Yeah,
But
great.
if it happened to you,
Bum, 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 bum.
oh, Judy's Turn to Cry. That's another great song from
Really
her.
good.
But she has so many great deep cuts that no one talks about. No one like she makes a lot of underrated albums. I think she's very underrated as an artist. Cry Me a River. That's underrated. I love that song. Just Let Me Cry. I mean, there are a lot of songs talking about crying.
There is.
The album is called I'll Cry If I Want to. Yeah. Cry Me a River, cry, just let me cry, cry and you cry alone, no more tears. Judy's Turn to Cry. I mean, yeah, kind of a lot of songs about crying, but I think she makes it work. I remember last year, I remember complaining that like oh yeah, it was Sam Cooke. I'm like, oh, it sings too much about twisting and all.
Yeah, yeah.
I complained about that album, but I feel like Leslie Gore actually made it work on this album. So Sam Cooke, take notes next time you're gonna make a twist album. But yeah, I love this album. Party's Over is really underrated song. That's probably my favorite non-hit on the album, but my favorite on the album is definitely the first song. It's My Party, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is an amazing album. I really like it.
All right. For me, number 10, album that kind of barely gets in there, but basically based on one really great song. But the album's called He's a Rebel by the Crystals. I said this Crystals debut, another girl group, Motown group. I really enjoy a lot of these girl Motown groups. A lot of times get in my top 10 in this time period. Uh, yeah, this is one where it's like, He's a Rebel. Love that song. Such a great song. Definitely the highlight of the album. The other song I really like is Oh Yeah, Maybe Baby. I thought was really good as well. Overall, Crystals have a pretty good sound. Of course, they have that good girl group sound I like. Other than those 2 songs, there's not a lot of other songs that I can point out as like great songs. It's just a lot of okay stuff. But so it's one of those albums that's like it just kind of barely gets in here based on the big hit. And I don't know. It's just one of those years where there wasn't enough albums really to it's one of those albums that probably wouldn't make it into like next year. It would make it into my top 10 because the albums just get so much better, I think, starting with like next year. But so it's one of those like just good enough. It gets in here at number 10 for me.
Cool. My number 9 is going to be Surf City and Other Swiggin' Cities by Jen and Dean. So we got a Jen and Dean album now. Of course, Surf City. Of course, that song was originally a Beach Boy written song, but then, well, he gave it to Jan. He was like, "Hey,
Okay.
you want a song?" I mean, well, they were hanging out a lot, Jan and Brian Wilson, and they were recording Surfing USA, the Beach Boys, and Jan and Dean were like, "Hey, you mind if Jan and Dean take it? And he's like, nah, I think that's gonna be the Beach Boys. But hey, here's Surf City though. Here's a song, and then Surf City became like this massive hit song, and of course, Brian's father was really pissed at
Yeah.
because he really wanted everything to be successful and all that for the Beach Boys, and he was a terrible father. He's like, how could you give a number one hit song away like that? Of course, the Beach Boys didn't know it was going to be a number one hit, but it ended up being a hit song. But Surf City, of course, to me, an amazing song. Surf City, here I come. Very Beach Boy-esque
Very
song.
Beach
Even has, I believe, Brian Wilson on backup vocals as well. So
yeah.
there's that. Memphis is a decent track. It's not really a song that I necessarily love. I mean, every artist is doing Memphis at
Oh,
this.
everybody does Memphis.
For this album, it works because it's supposed to be a bunch of cities. Hence the Other Swinging Cities title in the album name. Detroit City is really good. Manhattan's a great song. Philadelphia, PA. I mean, me being from PA, I'm gonna be a little biased with the song. It's really good. Way Down Yonder in New Orleans is a pretty fun song. Honolulu is pretty good. Kansas City is okay. It's an okay song. Same with That Left My Heart in San Francisco. I don't think that's the best version of that song at all. Tallahassee Lassie is a really good song. And yeah, this is a fun album. I wouldn't give it like a 10 out of 10, but it's like a 9 out of 10 for me. It's like a lot of fun songs on here that definitely I would listen to. I mean, I actually own the album. I didn't have time to bring the albums down here, but I own the album. I actually really like this album.
Yeah, they sound very Beach Boy. I thought that was a Beach Boy song. I was like, oh, Jan Dean, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Number 9 for me is another album that is like, man, it barely makes it in here because there's one song that I really love, and nothing else could. I didn't have any other albums to get in here, so we got "Rhythm of the Rain" by the Cascades, which obviously the title song "Rhythm Rain." Love that song. One of my favorite songs from the '60s period. I love the sound of the thunder at the beginning. It's so cool, and then the kind of sounds like rain and all that, and then it comes in with the band has a really great sound to it. Like they have good harmonies actually, and very nice sounding band. And like that "Rhythm Rain" is so catchy, and it's got some great harmonies in it. And um, unfortunately, no, the rest of the album doesn't have anything nearly that good. That's definitely the big highlight of the album. "Shy Girl" I thought was pretty good, and "Lucky Guy" are the other two I thought were some of the better songs on there. It's unfortunate that it's like one of those cases where it's like, man, I actually really like the sound of the Cascades. I feel like they had something there with their sound. Like I said, they had some harmonies and everything, and the songs just they're not quite there. It's like they don't quite have the great melodies or the great catchy choruses that really hook you into the song. So all the songs are just like, yeah, they're okay. Unfortunately, just not a lot of great stuff there. I feel like they're almost there though. I'm afraid that they're probably like a one-hit wonder band though. I don't know if they had that's Rhythm Rain's probably the only hit. Unfortunately, I haven't ventured into Cascades or heard any much about them except for that one song, which is too bad because, like I said, I kind of like their sound. They're just not quite there with the hit songs. But yeah, number 9, "Rhythm of the Rain" by the Cascades.
Okay. My number 8 is going to be The Free Willin' Bob Dylan. This is a great album. I'd say like a 9.5 out of 10 album for me. I will say there are like one or two songs that I think could have been left off the album because I think this album's like 50 minutes long. I don't think it warrants its 50-minute length in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is a great folk rock. I don't know. I say rock folk album. Really good folk album. Much better than the debut album. Bob Dylan. That was actually close to making my top 10 for last year, but because there was like no other options. But
Yeah.
I managed to find one album that slightly beat it, so kind of saved it there. But yeah, Free Will and Bob Dylan. Of course, it has "Blown in the Wind." I said that a little earlier this video. Also has Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, I Shall Be Free. Those three songs alone are worth checking the album out. But there are a lot of great songs though. Girl from the North Country. I do prefer the later version with Johnny Cash singing in it with him, but this early version's good too on its own. Masters of War, great song. I think that's an underrated song from him. Bob Dylan's Dream is pretty good. Oxford Town I like. Karina I like a lot. Um, I will say Down the Highway and Honey, Just Allow Me One More Chance are the two songs I'd say kind of take off the album. I wouldn't say like take them off like permanently, like don't put them on anything. I think maybe put it on some other album
Hmm,
that
okay.
he would end up making. Probably not on the Times They Are and Changing, but like some other album, or either have them as like B sides to singles or something like that. Like don't put them to waste per se, but I don't think they're not really songs that I'm like, these are not songs that warrant the album being 50 minutes long. That's like my only complaint. That's why I give it a 9.5, not a 10 out of 10, because I like what I'm hearing. I think great songs, but it gets to a certain point where I'm just like, can this album be over already? Because it's like almost double album length, but it's not a double album. So I
Yeah.
don't know. That's like my one complaint about it, though.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, Ryan from Not Your Normal Geek. Must be awesome to have your guys' knowledge on music. Don't know any of these albums so far by name at least, but I'll try to check some out. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're pretty big, especially '60s. We're pretty big on the '60s. Me and Nick, so this is kind of our time period where we listened to a lot of their albums, and yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, we hopefully have some pretty good knowledge and are making sense on what we were saying. And these are hopefully albums other people like. That if again, I don't hear people talk about these time periods, so it's kind of interesting talking about the early '60s. It's not really, I don't know. We're starting to get to a time period where people start talking about more of the music, but uh, early '60s a little rough at times. But it's fun to go back and kind of, for me, gain more knowledge in what was going on in early '60s. But number 8 for me, the Free Will and Bob Dylan.
Wow.
Yeah, so somehow we hit exactly the same spot on this one. Kind of funny. Yeah, Free Will and Bob Dylan. You gotta say one of the most influential folk albums of the '60s. I love the name Free Will and Bob Dylan. It's a great name album. I love saying that Free Will and Bob Dylan fits so well. Even the album cover is kind of iconic with Bob Dylan and his girlfriend, young Bob Dylan, in that one. But yeah, like I said, I know the Beatles talk about this album as being a big influence, and yeah, this is definitely much better. That's crazy. This is like a second album, much better than his first album. Bob Dylan, I thought was a boring album. I don't know. I couldn't get into that album. This one definitely is Bob Dylan really starting to be the Bob Dylan that I like, and this album definitely I think skyrocketed him probably more to fame and to more to being well known in the music industry. So big one for him. Um, for me, it's like half of the album is some really good stuff. The other half is some really boring Bob Dylan, and so it's like half a good album, half an album I don't like. That's why it's only hits the number 8 on my list. Um, but like you said, "Blowing the Wind." I mean, obviously that's a big classic on here. Really great. I know Peter, Paul, and Mary they do the song like the same year and get like a number 1 out of it, or get it's a big song for them as well. I like both versions. Both versions are really good in my opinion. Um, but yeah, it's just great songwriting. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. How many he's talking about all these different, causes, that's happening in the world, Uh, yeah, I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but man, the lyrics are great. Girl from North Country, man, I really like that song. And I've heard the other version too, and I really like that version on what Nashville Skyline or whatever. It's kind of a countryish style song, I guess. But yeah, I was like, man, this is a really good song. It's one that I'm not super familiar with. especially this version. But yeah, definitely one of the best songs on the album. My favorite is "A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall." Great Bob Dylan song. One of my favorite Bob Dylan songs, really. Another one where it's like he's going through different causes because these early Bob Dylan's definitely these folk protest stuff albums where you're like usually protesting some kind of cause, whatever. But it's another one that kind of great lyrics, really makes you think. And it's a hard rain's gonna fall. Oh, really catchy, that chorus. That's great. Don't Think Twice, All Right. It's another really good song on here. I really like Oxford Town. Oxford Town was one that I never heard before, and I was like, this is pretty good. It's kind of catchy. And Karina Karina was a really nice song. I was like, after all these like kind of, very protest style, folk songs that don't really have much I don't know, melodies to them, and then you get Karina Karina, which is like, wow, this is like a nice like little pop song or something, like really pretty and melody and everything. Yeah, for me, it's like you mentioned the Highway song. I thought was really boring.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't like that song.
I don't like the ones that have Bob Dylan's name in them. There's like Bob Dylan's Dream. I thought was really boring, and I think there's another one that's like uh, Bob Dylan's Blues, and I was like, oh, this is boring. So I was like, don't put your name in the song, Bob. There's like one song where he just talks to like, there's a lot of people that have songs, and he has like. It's like he's talking to an audience. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just get into the song. You're introducing the song on the album. Like that was weird to me. Anyways, but yeah, it's definitely I think a must if you're a music fan. It's like Ryan. I think like Bob Dylan's one of the most significant songwriters and singers that we've ever had. This is definitely one of those that like essential like albums I think you have to listen to that have super influence on the music industry, So it's number 8 on my list. It's not, like I said, it's unfortunately not one of the best albums for me. I mean, it's in my top 10, so it's like it's a good album, but just on historical significance, it's one you have to listen to, in my opinion. But yeah,
Well, I looked up the album location and for the album cover, and it was Jones Street in Greenwich Village, New York City.
yeah, okay.
And
Are
yeah,
you familiar with that?
I've never been in that part of New
Okay.
York, so I can't really tell you. I'm actually gonna look up uh which borough it's from because I don't know if that's like a New York. Uh, I'm guessing just by looking at the photo, it's probably like what's called probably like it's Bleecker Street, so it's like Manhattan. So it was a place in Manhattan. So that's cool to know.
Yeah.
Uh, Album cover side, my number 7 is gonna be That Stubborn Kind of Fellow from Marvin Gaye. This is his second album, and I just heard it today, and I was amazed by it. I was like, "This is a great album from Marvin Gaye." Around this time, he made a very popular version of "Can I Get a Witness," which sadly wasn't on this album. Would have been even better if it was on this album. The album actually would be a little higher if that was on the album, but yeah, this album is amazing. So many great songs on here. Stubborn Kind of Fellow, Pride and Joy, Hitchhike,
Mm.
uh, and Soldier's Plea. Those are like 4 singles off the album. None of them did anything when they were first released, which is a shame. This album didn't do anything either, which is a shame. I think it's a great album. Um, Whenever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home is really good. Second side's great. Hurt Me Too, Take My Time, Hello There, Angel, which first time you'll hear the Temptations sing on a song. They do backup vocals. So this was before their debut album in '64. So you're hearing Temptations before they even make an album. So that's cool hearing them sing with Marvin Gaye. I mean, to me, this is a 10 out of 10 album. To me, this is an album I definitely recommend. I'm going through Marvin Gaye right now. I listened to his first 3 albums. His first album in '61 was terrible. Not terrible, but it was very boring and very jazzy. reason why I mean, I listened to the album before going through the journey, and there's a reason why I didn't end up in my albums of 61 list. It was just a little boring to me. And the third album is just terrible. It's just another jazzy album. But this is like the one album out of his first three that aren't jazzy. And I'm like, just let Marvin Gaye sing non-jazzy stuff because jazz isn't his thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of cool. Early Marvin Gaye, sounds a little bit different than when he'll sound like later on, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting to hear like the album Summer kind of felt as like the Can I Get a Witness type songs, but then the first and third album are like jazzy, and I'm like, it's so interesting hearing that. I'm like, I don't like his early albums, to be honest. I listened to a little bit of his fourth album, and hopefully he kind of steers away from it because he did a album with Mary Wells, and it's not jazzy at all. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that marks the end of his jazz period, but
Mhm.
I don't think so. I think he's gonna keep doing some more jazz until the 70s.
Yeah. Which is the Marvin Gaye people mostly know as the 70s, but yeah.
Yeah.
Number 7 for me, we got Big Girls Don't Cry and 12 Others by the Four Seasons. So Four Seasons, second year in a row now, we got them in the top 10. And I think this album's actually quite a bit better than the last album. Last album was, I think, was Sherry and 12 Others or something like that. And that album was like one we both, I think, barely had in our top 10. It was like one of those, like, not great, but there was not a lot of choices, so it made it in because I do like the big hits on that. This one, yeah, I think is actually quite a bit better, and it still has two really big hits, and probably one of my favorite songs from them. But I mean, we open with "Walk Like a Man," big hit, really great song. Love uh, Frankie Valli's high falsetto voice, "Walk like a man," whatever. I can't do it. Walk like a man, ooh. Oh, great sound. Um, we got a lot of covers, I would say, and they're decent covers. We got Silhouettes, decent cover. The bigger version is, of course, the Hermits have like the really good version of that song. It was a hit song for them, I believe. We have Why Do Fools Fall in Love. It was a decent cover. The bigger one is the Frankie Lyman, the Teenagers, I think, which I'd say is probably a little bit better. It's more just because it's more iconic, but still not a bad cover there. A song called Tonight Tonight I thought was pretty good. Another song called Alone I thought was pretty good. And then the end with one of my favorite, Big Girls Don't Cry. Oh man, that's such a great song. Big girls don't cry. Oh, so catchy. Big girls, they don't cry. Like I love that. How he does that. And then I love the low voice. I love you got his voice, the yeah, and then you got someone go silly girls. So you have like this low voice guy. Fits so great. Again, probably top 5 favorite song from them. It's so catchy. But yeah, two big hits, and then a lot of, I like some decent stuff in between that made it into here. Number 7. There's still a lot of songs a lot of other songs I didn't care for on that album, unfortunately. So it's not gonna be super high as I would like it to be, but makes it here number 7.
Yeah, I have 2 honorable mentions, and I'll spoil it. That's one of them.
Okay, cool.
So it's not a bad album. I mean, I do have an album that I'm not crazy about that I will share when I reveal my bottom pick for this year. But yeah, I don't think it's as good as the first album in terms of highs because I like Teardrops a lot. But I don't think the lows were as low as the first album, like Peanuts.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's not as low as the one. Yeah,
and the Carol song. Those 2 songs are terrible. Carol. Don't like it. Okay, my number 6 is gonna be "How Do You Like It" by Jerry and the Pacemakers. So we have their debut album on my list, and well, the only British Invasion band to end up on my list. So at least I have that representation for me.
one Liverpool.
Yeah, at least I got a Liverpool band in this list.
It's not the Beatles, but Liverpool made it.
Okay, fine. I'll reveal the second honorable mention. It's Please Please Me. So those are like the 2 big honorable mentions: Big Girls Don't Cry and Please Please Me. How do you like it? I love the energy on this one. I think Jerry Jerry Gary. Think great vocalist. I think he's the reason why I like this album so much. He just has that energy to him. Songs like "Shut Up Rhythm and Blues," "Let's Have a Little Rhythm and Blues." Great song. "Shut Up Rhythm and Blues," easily the best song on the album. That should have been like one of their big hits, in my opinion. Surprised they never pushed that as a single because I think it's as good as their other singles, like "How Do You Do It" and all that. "Ferry Across the Mersey." I think it's on that level of those singles, and it wasn't a single, so that shocks me. Jambalaya on the Bayou. Think it's a fun song. "Where Have You Been All My Life" is good. "Here's Hoping." I like his version of Maybelline's great. I love the energy on it. Not as good as Chuck Berry's version, but it's good for what it is. "You'll Never Walk Alone." That's like a big single for them.
Yeah.
When You Walk.
Yeah.
Great song. "You're the Reason," "Chills." A lot of these songs, like if it was done by any other artist around this time, it would be like an album that I wouldn't care for. But I think Gary, I think he really adds like flavor and he just adds like energy to these songs that I really enjoy. So this is an album I think is really underrated. And if we did our top 10 British Invasion debuts, this would be like in my top 10 of those debut albums.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have that on my list because I couldn't find it. And it probably would have made my top 10 if I could have found the album to listen to again. Because I know I listened to it one time and I thought it was pretty good. So I don't remember enough about the album to put it in my top 10. And then it's on Spotify. And then it's like I
Not
tried,
on Spotify anymore.
yeah, because I was trying to look for it and I couldn't find it if I remember right. I think so. Because I remember I thought I was, yeah, I thought that was an album I was trying to look for and I couldn't find or something. And
It's on Spotify.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on there.
Oh, maybe I did listen to it. I didn't like it. I thought I liked
Probably.
it. Okay, I don't know. It's on my list, but I thought I liked that album. Maybe I did listen to it and I didn't like it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you revisited and you weren't as into it again.
Maybe I revisited it and I didn't like it as much. I don't know what happened. I thought I
Yeah.
liked it, but I didn't. I don't have it here in my top 10 or anything.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe it's another album. I don't know. All right, number 6 for me. We got another return for Ricky Nelson. Ricky Nelson Sings for You. This is the 4th year in a row I get a Ricky Nelson album in my top 10. All 4 years I had a Ricky Nelson in there, which I didn't realize. So I looked at my list and I was like, oh my gosh, he makes it every year. I did not anticipate that he would be somebody I'd be like, oh yeah, Ricky Nelson. But yeah, every year I listen to the big album he has, and every year I'm like, I really like the sound of it. I really like his voice. All the songs, are pretty good. I would say his highs aren't super high. Like I'm not like in love with his songs. They're not at the top level of some of these other groups and stuff like that. But his albums are very consistent. Like it's like there's not really any bad songs on these albums. It's like every song I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. So I love the consistency of his albums. In the last couple of years, I'm like, yeah, I'm really kind of enjoying it. And that's the same thing for this one. It's just it's really solid album all the way through, and so it makes it all the way to number 6 for me. None of his albums make it to my top 5, like I said, because there's no really a lot of big songs on the album. Like Ricky's 21 is probably the biggest one because it has Traveling Man and Hello Mary Lou are like his 2 big hits on that album. Besides that, there's not a lot of hits that I know of. But yeah, I just found myself really enjoying this. I think my favorite song was "That's All She Wrote." I thought it was really catchy, really good. Also, "I Rise, I Fall." I thought was really good on here. It was real catchy. But yeah, like I said, I can almost say the whole album is pretty good. There's only maybe 1 or 2 songs I really didn't care for, but "Fools Rush In," "You're Free to Go" is pretty good, and "Just Take a Moment" are some of the songs I wrote down. They're some of my favorite on here. But like, yeah, seriously, like about every song I was like really enjoying on this album. And I don't know what it is. I just love his style, I guess. His voice is really nice and smooth and uh, just a nice sounding voice. And I don't know, I want to say he has like almost this folk sound to him or something. It's very, just acoustic guitar style. So I don't know, just just one of those things where just I guess it's my style. Now his albums won't make it anymore after this year. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get another Ricky Nelson in because British Invasion's hitting next year and folk rock is going to hit as well. So I think it's probably the end of Ricky Nelson, but still a pretty good run. 4 years in a row for me. I got Ricky Nelson in here. So
I had him for like 1 year.
yeah, Ricky's 21. I think you had.
Yeah. I liked his albums are like okay to me. Even Rick is 21. It was only there because there were like no other real options. So it was like
Exactly.
it's there because it's like it's good, but it's not like this is like
Yeah.
the best. Okay, top 5 now. So number 5 for me, it's gonna be A Christmas Gift for You from Phil Spector.
Big Spectre. Yeah.
That when you're telling me that top 10 albums are like 2 Christmas albums, like how is the Phil Spector album not there?
I know.
That's like the Christmas album.
Big one. Yeah.
Like, I think it's even more the Christmas album than the Christmas album by the Beach Boys. It's like when people think Christmas albums, they think this album. You look up radio during the Christmas time.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard White Christmas, Frosty the Snowman, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Sleigh Ride, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Winter Wonderland, or Here Comes Santa Claus on the radio from this album, then you're clearly not listening to the radio. These are like radio songs, like 9 or not like 7 or 8 songs from this album of the 13 songs are played on the radio to this day. So that shocks me. That still shocks me. That'll continue to shock me that the Christmas albums one of the Christmas albums that made it on there wasn't even this one. So going off that rant, White Christmas, great cover. Definitely the best version of the song done by Daryl Love. I don't listen to her music. This is like the only time I listen to her is on this album.
Okay.
Frosty the Snowman, done by the Ronettes.
Okay. Ronettes.
Another great version of the song. The Bells of St. Mary, done by Bob B. Sox and the Blue Jeans. Their most notable song is Zippity Doo Dah. So,
yeah.
I think they did a good job on this album too. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, done by the Crystals. I love so much. Sleigh Ride, done by the Ronettes again. I mean, that's like a song that I always hear on the radio when in the grocery store and all that during Christmas time. So, and I still think it's really good. A Marshmallow World, done by Darnell Love. Great stuff. I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus is a funny song. Also done by the Ronettes. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by the Crystals is fun. Winter Wonderland by Darnell Love is great. Paradise of Wooden Soldiers is pretty good. Probably my least favorite on the album, if I'm being honest. Christmas, Baby Please Come Home is great. Done by Darnell Love. Here Comes Santa Claus, Bob B. Sox and the Blue Jeans, pretty fun. And Silent Night, with Phil Spector doing a spoken word thing at the end, like, I'm still Phil Spector, and I'd like to thank you guys for listening to this album. Weirdly enough, I actually thought that was pretty cool, but still on the lower end of the spectrum. But this album's great. I think Christmas Gift for You is like the Christmas album. It's not my favorite Christmas album. My favorite Christmas album is still the Beach Boys Christmas album, but this album's definitely a must listen. It's really good and really essential.
Early Phil Spector, which become really known for the Wall of Sound and doing a lot of, while doing what Abbey Libby, I guess. Libby and then some solo Beatles stuff.
Yeah.
And then murdering his wife later on. So
that's the Phil Spector that we don't talk about.
That's the part that hurts the whole story. It's like, oh darn it.
Yeah.
I think he was he writing music for one of the, he was a songwriter, I think, for one of the, or he was produced a lot of famous, like, or was he married to somebody that was in a girl group? I can't remember, but he was.
I think you're right. I'm not sure.
I forget the whole story, but yeah. So a lot of significance in the Motown era before he kind of became well known later on. But anyways, Yeah. Number 5 for me, we're gonna get into the Beatles with this one. One of two albums I got in my top 5, and the first one is With the Beatles by the Beatles, their second UK album that came out this year. Yeah, obviously, no surprise, Beatles are gonna make it on my list. Like I said, every Beatles album is gonna, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be in my top 10. It's gonna be hard not to get. Well, yeah, I think it's gonna be hard not to get them in there for me because I'm such a big fan. Even this album is like actually like this is like my least favorite Beatles album, not counting like the Yellow Submarine's probably my least favorite, but with the Beatles is one that I at least listen to. Kind of, it's like I said, it's like number 12 on my list of when I rank Beatle albums. Even then, listening to it, it's still not a bad album. I still quite enjoy a lot of the songs on here. That's why it's still at number 5 for me because um, still, I think the only thing that hurts it, like I said, it's just it's a weak Beatle album, but yet even a weak Beatle album is good a Beatle album for me. It doesn't quite have the highs that like Please Please Me have, I think, and that's why it's a little lower. And a lot of the other Beatle albums, it just doesn't have the highs. There's a lot of Beatle stuff, but still, you got It Won't Be Long, great song to open up the album, really catchy. You really get that really catchy Beatles sound there, um, and great backing vocals and all that. Also, All My Loving, those are my top 2 songs on the album. It Won't Be Long and All My Loving, really great, catchy Beatles songs. Even the second song, All I Gotta Do, I was listening to it, that's pretty good. It's not one I think about a lot, but still, it's got some good stuff there. Um, then you got a couple good covers as well. Till There Was You I really quite like that song. It's a nice. It's a Music Man cover. It's a cover of a Music Man, which is a musical. But it's really sweet. It's like this really nice, sweet song from Paul. Paul's known for these granny songs, whatever, these really sweet songs that, yeah, grandmas love, and this is probably one of them. I like it though. I like the guitar solo. I think it's really cool in it. Please Mr. Postman is one of my favorite cover songs from the Beatles. Actually, it's in my top 10, probably even top 5 favorite cover song that they did from the Marvelettes, which we talked about that when the Marvelettes did that album. And I think it's a really good cover. I think John's vocals really great here. Super catchy. And yeah, great John Lennon here. I also really like You've Really Got a Hold on Me, the Miracles cover. I think is a really good. I think the Miracles version is better because that came out this year as well. But I think this actually, when I was listening to it, it's another song I don't think about a lot when I think about the Beatles. But when I was re-listening to the album, I kind of was like, you know what? I kind of like the song. Yeah, it's got a nice sound to it overall, and uh, yeah, I think their sound really works for it. But anyways, some really good stuff there. Only unfortunately has like I Want to Be Your Man is terrible from Ringo. Roll Over Beethoven's never been a favorite of mine on the album from George's cover. So what hurts the album is some of the covers. I think there's a couple covers that I don't think are very good on the album that really kind of hurt it. But there's still enough good stuff here that it still makes it into my top 5.
Cool. Yeah, I am not a big fan of that album.
You're not.
Yeah, that's like one of 2 albums I'm debating whether to have on my
And the
list.
worst.
Yeah, if you could believe it.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry. What were you gonna say?
nothing. Just I agree. I kind of knew that. Yeah.
Okay, number 4. It's gonna be the first time I do this. It's a tie. Surfer Girl and Little Deuce Coupe. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean both these albums to me really good albums from this band. It's funny to hear Little Deuce Coupe was the album that was big this year. I thought Surfer Girl would be the big album of the 3 Beach Boy albums released this year. Um, yeah, I mean, first I'll talk about Surfer Girl briefly. Surfer Girl, great song. Catch a Wave, Little Deuce Coupe, In My Room. Those are like amazing Beach Boy songs. But there are a lot of great deep cuts too, like Surfer Moon, South Bay Surfer, Rockin' Surfer, which is a fun instrumental. Hawaii, I love that song. Up, up, Hawaii, Hawaii, down in Hawaii. Ah, fun song. Surfers Rule, I love it. They dissed the Four Seasons at the end where it's like, Four Seasons, better believe it. Brian Wilson doing the Walk Like a Man uh,
Oh yeah.
side note. Ooh, Four Seasons, you better believe it. And then he just does it again. It's like, great song. Our Car Club's fun. Your Summer Dream, I love. Great deep cut. Boogie Woody is probably kind of not a lousy closer, but I don't think it should have been the album closer. I think Your Summer Dream would have been the perfect album closer. To me, it's like their first 10 out of. Well, I'd say Surfing US, Surfing Safari I gave it 10, but this is like their first like really good album that I personally would recommend. Little Deuce Coupe. This album, the reason why I tied is because I think the highs on this album are higher than the last album, but there were just way too many repeat tracks. Like
repeats, yeah.
Little Deuce Coupe, I could give away because it's the title track. I always give the title tracks a break, but 409, Shut Down, and Our Car Club were on there. It's like obvious filler tracks. But the new tracks, though, I really like. Ballad of Old Betsy does kind of have a problematic lyric, like, I could beat up my car and she never once complained, saying like, God, women shouldn't complain when I beat her, kind of thing. Where it's like, whoa, what are you doing? I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
A good take.
It's terrible. It's like, Betsy's been through beatings and she never once complained. I'm like, it's a terrible lyric. Terrible. Has my favorite version of Be True to Your School. There's a single version, then there's an album version. I would much prefer the album version. That version where there's like cheerleaders singing in it or whatever, the single version, I hate that version. Car Crazy Cutie, yeah, Brian Wilson singing a faster song, which is unusual for him. Cherry Cherry Coupe is great. Go Cherry Cherry Coupe now. Go Cherry Cherry Coupe now. Spirit of America is great. No Go Showboat, I love. A Young Man's Gone. Basically, I think his name is James Dean or whatever, the guy who died in a car crash. That song's about him, rebel without a cause. Great song. Great tribute to him. No one talks about the song. It's like they're like tributing James Dean and no one ever talks about it. It's a shame. Custom Machine's a fun track. Take my custom machine. It goes wow. So much fun songs. That's what I love about the early Beach Boys. It's just fun songs. And yeah, these two albums are amazing. That's my number 4. A tie.
That's a good tie, though. I told it when you said a tie, I thought it's the 2 Beach Boy albums. I was right. I was like, that makes sense. All right, number 4 for me is Surfer Girl by the Beach Boys. So we basically have the same 4. That's funny. We kind of agreed on 8 and 4 right now. We got it there. So I totally agree with you on that. Little Deuce Coupe is a fine album. It's just, I guess I kind of just like, I prefer this just because the other album has all these repeats in it and all that. But Surfer Girl is, I think, a big improvement on the first 2 albums, whatever, Surfing Safari and Surfing USA. This is, definitely one of the first like really good Beach Boys album for me. And a lot of it's because there's 2 like really great like ballads with great harmonies. My favorite is In My Room. I love that song. It's one of my favorite beats. It's probably like a top 10 Beach Boy song for me. I've always loved that song. Even when I was a kid, I remember hearing it on the radio and thinking, man, this is such a cool, catchy kind of song with that. In my room, where there's a place where I can go to. Amazing. Like the melody, the harmonies. That's why I love the Beach Boys. I love these type of songs. I mean, and to me, it's like this points to like what we're gonna get in Pet Sounds, like this quality. Like Brian Wilson definitely is like showing his genius quality and like great songwriting, great harmonies, great melody. All that. It's in My Room. One of the best voice songs. Really helps this album. Surfer Girl is a really great song too. That's the other one where it's like, man, this is great melody, great harmonies. amazing song. It's like those two songs are so good. And then you get Lil Deuce Coupe, typical, very fun, very catchy Beach Boys song. One of their best in that category. Really, really great song. I really like Catch a Wave. You mentioned that. I thought that was one of my favorite on the album. It's really catchy song too. Um, After that, like the other songs are okay. I feel like they kind of like there's so many songs with the word surfer in them. I remember going through and going, gosh, everything that was the theme of the album, I guess, like surfer that, surfer. I thought it was kind of funny. So I don't remember a lot of the songs after those four. They're like the big ones I really remember. After that, it's like I remember thinking, okay, these songs are okay. They just seem to kind of start feeling the same a little bit to me. And then there's I don't know if there's two instrumentals you mentioned.
Two instrumentals.
Yeah, I didn't care for that, especially the last one. I thought I didn't care to have that instrumental at the end. I thought it was I don't know. I'm not into instrumentals as much, so it's like too bad. Like they feel like filler songs. Like I'd rather put a regular song in there, I guess, you know. But yeah. So yeah, it's number four because it's like I said, has some of the best Beach Boys songs so far, and yeah, they're really showing how great songwriters they're coming and melodies and all that. It's just you're really, and I think the Beach Boys next couple albums are even better. So we're starting to get some really great Beach Boys stuff at this point. 64, 65 is just I think incredible Beach Boys stuff. So this is the beginning of really good stuff for them.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. My number three is I'm going back to Leslie Gore again. So I mean, you could have. You probably think like, oh, you know, the album name's Leslie Gore Sings of Mixed Parts. You're probably thinking, oh, you know, when you tie the two albums, well, I actually think this album's a lot better than the first album. For one, it has two of her biggest hits on this album: "Sunshine," "Lollipops and Rainbows," and "You Don't Own Me."
Mm-hmm.
Those are like her best two songs, in my opinion. So I thought when I first went into this album, when I first heard "She's a Fool," to me, that's her best song. She's a fool. She's a fool. Ah, great song. The Old Crowd. It starts out slow, but then it picks up. It's like this is another great song. Fools Rush In is great. Young Lovers, great cover of that song. My Foolish Heart is great. Again, those two back-to-back hits, Sunshine, Lollipops and Rainbows, and You Don't Owe Me. Those are like
Yeah.
two great songs, and they're back-to-back on the album. One closes out side one, and one opens up side two. So it's like great two-song run. Run Bobby Run's great. Young and Foolish is good. I Struck a Match, If There's the Way You Want It, and Time to Go. I don't think the last four songs are as strong as the first 8 songs on the album, but I think the first 8 songs are strong enough to have this a 10 out of 10 album. And this is like an album where it's like an album where it's like she's like making it for the album. You know, it's not just for the singles. Don't be surprised if a deep cut makes it into my top 5 deep cuts list when we get to 63, because
Yeah.
there's a couple really good deep cuts on this album. At least one of them would make it on here. Yeah, great album.
Well, Nick, would you believe we're in total agreement on this one? Number 3 for me is Leslie Gore Sings of Mixed Up Hearts. Number 3, yeah. So, or number 4, number 3, we hit exactly, which that's pretty funny. Actually, I kind of thought this would be your number 1 because you've been talking about this album quite a bit lately on our chat. So I thought, oh, this probably is number 1. So I was wrong. So now I'm not sure what your top 2 are. I have a feeling it's probably different than mine. I know number 1's different because you already talked about your number 1, but my number 1, anyways. But yeah, though, really cool to see. Yeah, this one really kind of surprised me. I didn't know much about Leslie Gore except for "It's My Party." I think when I think Leslie Gore, I think "It's My Party" was a huge song on the radio. I'd hear all the time. I listen to 60s music. So it was really cool getting into this album and not really expecting much out of her and going, wow, this is really good stuff. I really like her voice. She has a really good voice, I think. And this is like really good pop stuff. I mean, she sings really good, I think, like pop music and good ballads and that really work. It's one of those albums that's just really solid all the way through. Like there's no real bad song on this album. Like I'm like, even the stuff I'm not familiar with, I'm kind of still kind of enjoying going, yeah, it's not bad. You know, it's not the greatest, but it's like, I'm still enjoying it. I totally agree. "She's a Fool" is my favorite song on the album. That's one where I was like, I didn't even know. I'm sure I heard the song before, but I was like, didn't know it was Leslie Gore. And then and we say she's a fool. I didn't even think, well, what's she's a fool? And then I started listening. I go, oh yeah, this is great. like this is an awesome song. Yeah, that chorus, so good. She's a fool. Oh, so catchy. Yeah, love that song. Um, you Don't Own Me. It's another. I didn't know that was Leslie Gore. That's a song I've heard on the radio too, and I'm like, oh, You Don't Own Me. Yeah, I've heard that song before. Like, I didn't know that was Leslie Gore. That's another really great song. Kind of almost a girl power style song, but really, I mean, great like orchestra music behind it. Really great kind of powerful song. I guess talking about a guy that's too possessive of her and saying, "Hey, give me some freedom, back off," so really good stuff there. Again, Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows. What a catchy song. Again, I didn't know this was Leslie Gore, and I know I've heard the song before somewhere, and I heard it. Oh, that's Leslie Gore. Like these are three really really great songs that I didn't know she did these songs, and then I'm like, wow, I'm really impressed. But yeah, Sunshine Lollipops. I mean, you can't find a catchier. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbow. It's just the epitome of catchiness. It's like sunshine pop stuff. Great stuff. I also wrote down Young Lovers. I thought was really good. I think you mentioned that one, so I was like, okay, I have total agreement. Young Lovers, I thought was really good, and Young and Foolish, I thought was really good too. Those were the big ones for me, anyways. But yeah, to me, it's like just a solid pop album all the way through. You're muted.
It actually feels like this is the first time we actually got a full-on pop album from an artist, because in 1960, 61, we're having like jazz, R&B, and all that. 62, we're getting a little bit of pop, but this is like the first time we really get a pop album in our top 10.
Right.
Feels like.
Yeah, and I should say it's an album where I feel like it's not full of covers. Like I don't know how many, if there's a bunch of covers on here. If it is, I didn't know that. They all sound like originals. And so I thought that was really cool. Like, because almost every album I get to is like you get a couple of cool originals and then everything's covers. And so it's like, I don't know. To me, I got to this one, I was like, oh, it feels like all originals, which is quite cool.
Yeah. Well, my number 2 is going to be a Johnny Cash album, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. This album is great.
Oh, is that the top 100?
That was in my top 100 albums list.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, what an incredible album. Legend of John Henry's Hammer. Great. It's like an epic opening track. It's like 8 minutes long, but it's like a story about John Henry and his hammer. It's really cool, actually. Tell Him I'm Gone's a pretty cool bluesy type song. Another Man's Done Gone. It's like kind of somewhat a cappella-ish, where it's like Johnny Cash is like, another man done gone. And then you hear June Carden in the background, another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Another man done gone. Really good song. Busted, great song. Casey Jones is a fun song. 9 Pound Hammer, I love. Chain Gang, pretty good. Waiting for a Train and Roughneck are good songs, but man, I mean those John Henry's Hammer and Another Man Done Gone and Busted are like 3 songs that really enjoy from him. I've never heard this album until me and Jacob series through Johnny Cash, and this is an album I'm so happy I discovered on that series. It's really good.
All right, so this is at least the second time in a row you had Johnny Cash, maybe 3 times in a row.
I've had, I think besides like 1 year, I've had Johnny Cash in every year so far.
I was gonna say I think Johnny Cash is, for me, it's Ricky Nelson's hitting every year. Johnny Cash for You is the one that's hitting, I think, hitting every year, which is really cool. Number 2, album that, man, I didn't know I was gonna love this album so much, but the more I hear it, more it went up to number 2 for me. That's Heat Wave by Martha Reeves and Vandellas, another great girl Motown group. Yeah, this is album where I was like, didn't really have any expectations. Didn't really know the group that much, but I was like, gave it a try. So happy I did. Obviously, the title song, Heat Wave, great song. Martha Reeves, whatever, I guess must be the lead singer of this group. Really great vocals. She's a really good singer, and backing vocals are great too. Of course, it's a really good girls group. But yeah, that Heat Wave, super catchy song. It's Heat Wave. What do you call me? It's just one of those classic Motown, hit songs are there. My favorite song though is "Hey There, Lonely Boy." Man, I love this song. This really like I didn't know if I've heard the song before, but when I heard it, I was like, it's like one of my favorite songs now from this year. I just love her vocals on it. Hey there, lonely boy. Ah, when she sings that, I'm like, yes, I'm lonely boy. It just like spoke to me or something. It's just I just love the whole idea of the song. Just like a guy who's like this girl like sees this guy who doesn't have anybody, and she's like, hey, you have. I think it says something like someone broke your heart, and it's like I can come in and help you, fix that. I don't know. I just love it, and her vocals are so good, super catchy. It's one of the songs that as soon as I heard it, it stays in my head. But yeah, love that. Those are the two like really good. Like I think I want to say like originals maybe out here. But then I really like the cover songs in here. Then You Kiss Me, I thought was really great. Hello Stranger, really great. Just One Look, really great stuff. Yeah, that's the really great kind of Motown girl group album, which I do love. I said like it seems like a lot of them make it into. I already had the Crystals here, and Shirelles and Marvelettes have made into my top tens in the past. Uh, yeah, if you haven't heard this, I like to me it's like man, give this. This is one of the like this and like Leslie Gore have been the two really cool discoveries for me. Like where I'm like, man, this is way better than I expected. It's like everybody should check these out.
I'm so glad you liked the album. It's a decent album for me. I love Motown. I love you know I love the Motown artists like Temptations and all that.
Yeah,
Martha and the Vandellas aren't like a group that I necessarily listen to that much, but there's a couple of songs I really like from them, like Heat Wave to me is their best song. That song that's your favorite song on the album is pretty good too. I'm
yeah,
surprised you like that as your favorite. I'm like, I thought you would actually agree with me with Heat Wave being the best song, but I'm
yeah.
glad you actually like that song. It's really good. Okay, I guess I'll tell you my two honorable mentions again, just a refresher. Please Please Me by the Beatles and Big Girls Don't Cry and 12 others. 12 other songs the kids might like by uh okay, number 1, Ring of Fire, the best of Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Uh it's technically a compilation, but there's like one repeat song from the other albums. It's funny. There's like one repeat on this. They call it a compilation. There's 4 repeats on Little Deuce Coupe. They consider that to be a studio album. So where's the fine line in these artists? So me and Jacob consider this to be his studio album. To me, this is his best album so far in our series. I mean, this is an album I've listened to far before our series even started. So this is an album that goes back for me. Ring of Fire, great song. Love is a burning thing, an old fiery thing. I fell for you like a child. Great song. I'd Still Be There's great song. What Do I Care? I Still Miss Someone. One of my all-time favorite Johnny Cash songs. I Still Miss Someone. 40 Shades of Green is really good. Were You There when they crucified my Lord? Haunting song. It's a very haunting song, basically about Jesus Christ being crucified, and the way they sing it is so haunting. The Rebel, Johnny Yuma, another one of my all time favorite Johnny Cash songs. Bonanza, the theme song to the TV show, pretty cool. The Big Battle I like. Remember the Alamos, really good, and Tennessee Flat Top Box is great, and There'll Be Peace in the Valley. Jacob likes the Elvis version better. I've always preferred the Johnny Cash version personally. Yeah, this is like to me one of my all time favorite albums. I mean, I haven't talked it on my top 100 albums list, yes, but you'll definitely see it on there.
Yeah,
Yeah, second year in a row, Johnny Cash number 1 for me.
yeah, that's right. Wow. Yeah, and your top two, Johnny Cash.
I was close to tying it actually. It was this
Yeah.
close to tying, but I just slightly prefer this album.
Wow. Well, Johnny Cash. That's why I couldn't. I forgot Ring of Fire came out this year. I probably would have guessed that was number one. I know you like that album.
Yeah.
quite a bit, but I forgot about that one.
I'm gonna send you my top 10 list while you're talking about your number one.
Well, you can guess what my number one is. Obvious choice. The one I own, Please Please Me by the Beatles. The Beatles debut UK album, I should say, coming out here. Yeah, it's hard because I was like, man, the top three were definitely all like considered for number one. I was like going back and forth, like which one of these should be number one? But I guess I had to go with this, and probably because obviously Beatles are my favorite band, so that I have a biasness, I guess there. And I've heard this album so many times, I know it so well, so that helps get it to number one. Where the other two, I'm just kind of discovering for the first time. Um, but I still think it's a really good debut album, in my opinion. Uh, Still a solid, yes, very solid album. I mean, you start with I Saw Her Standing There. Listen again, man, what a great opener. I think it's a great rock opener. The 1, 2, 3, 4, and then bum, 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 great stuff. Misery, I think it's a really good song. I actually really quite enjoy Misery. And I Go to Him, man, great cover. It's not a song you ever heard. I never heard the original really, but man, I love this cover. I love John's vocals here. Actually, nice catchy number there. Chains, I actually quite like Chains. It's a Carole King written song for a girl group called the Cookies. That I don't know that well, but yeah, I like Chains. I thought it was real catchy. Boys is definitely the worst song of the album. Again, Ringo, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be singing. These early stuff are not good for Ringo. Ask Me Why is okay. Then Please Please Me. I love Please Please Me. The title song, first number one hit for them. Man, it's so catchy. I love the guitar riff. One of my favorite from this early period. The bum 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 bum. Super catchy riff, and I just love the vocals and it's such a fast paced song. Last night I said these words to my girl. Bum 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 bum. It's just got great catchy sound to it, and just John Lennon just killing it on there. Love Please Please Me. Love Me Do. Not a huge fan of it, but it's a classic Beatles song. It's their first hit song. P.S. I Love You, I think it's great. One of my favorite McCartney songs from this period. Great vocals from him. Baby It's You, a really good cover song. What helps this album is I think the covers are actually quite good. And compared to with the Beatles, I think these covers are much better. Obviously, the Beatles get much better, I think, once we get to Hard Day's Night, and we start getting we get albums that are pretty much all originals. I enjoy more, but there's still some good covers in those period. Do You Want to Know a Secret? I think it's a pretty good song, George song. And then you get Taste of Honey, another not great song on here. One of the weaker ones here. There's a Place is okay. And then we end with my favorite song, Twist and Shout. Oh my gosh. Another cover, but feels like original. Man, it is a great rock number. I love again, John just killing it on the vocals. Twist and shout. He's like really giving it his all. You can just tell he's just belting out. As we know, the story is he was like suffering from a cold or something like that, and he was still belting it out and killing it on vocals. And they only did like 2 takes, and his voice was gone, but they got it. But I love the like how they do that. That's such a cool sound. How they kind of just get louder and louder, the crescendo of that, and then yeah, great guitar work. One of their best early songs for me. So man, it's an album that's got some great highlights. Like I said, Please Please Me, Twist and Shout, and I Saw Her Standing There. Some of their best material at this early period. Still a fun album. Like I said, there's like 2 dud songs, but besides that, I've heard this album many times. Still, I think a really good debut album for me. So, not surprisingly, number one, the Beatles are going to hit number one quite a bit in the 60s now. From here on, we're going to get more number ones from the Beatles, and this is the first one for me the first album's going to get it in there. So, we'll see what happens next. But yeah. I got 2 Beatles. You got 2 Johnny Cashes. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Don't worry. Johnny Cash won't be on my list very long. I mean, he'll have like a couple of reappearances, but Once the British Invasion and folk rock come live, that's when you'll
Yeah,
probably disappear. Probably.
I'm guessing you'll get some Beatles in the top 10.
Maybe,
Oh, maybe not.
maybe.
I was hoping at least 65 or 66 there might be, but
I'm hoping to have at least Revolver on there.
yeah, I'm hoping so. All right, well, that's our lists, top 10 lists for 1963. We were total agreement on Free Will and Bob Dylan, Surfer Girl, and Let's See Girl Sings Up Mixed Up Charts. Those are the three that we really were agreement on. But that's good. We got some good variety here on the album as well, and our other picks. So yeah, enjoyed that list. Really enjoyed doing these with you, Nick, and thank you for coming on and doing it again. And 64, looking forward to that. That's gonna be a really great discussion, I think.
Oh, I certainly agree. Very
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yes. All right. Besides that, Nick, anything more to say or?
Well, before we close out, I will give you my thought for the worst album of the year.
Oh yes. Worst album of the year. Yeah.
Surfing USA by the Beach Boys.
Oh, okay. Beach
Way
Boys.
too many instrumentals. Besides the title track and Shut Down and Lonely Sea, like everything else I could care less for. You're probably thinking, oh, it's gonna be With the Beatles. I was a candidate, but I think With the Beatles has a lot better songs on the album. I think the lows are probably a little lower, but yeah, that's just my thought. But yeah, that's my candidate for the worst album of 63, Surfing USA.
Yeah, I get that. The one I thought about, that's funny. I have a hard time thinking about what's worse. The one I feel like I'm pretty disappointed in, and I don't remember the name of the album, but the Righteous Brothers. I'm just really disappointed in them. I was expecting more of the Righteous Brothers, but their album's really boring for me.
Yeah, they have like one really big hit. You're like, oh, they probably have a great album.
Yeah.
And then their album sucks. Like the album with You've Lost That Loving Feeling. That album sucks. I don't like that album at all.
Yeah, I feel kind of disappointed. I was hoping for something great from them, but they didn't hit it for me. But yeah. Besides that, I don't know. I didn't really write down what my worst album is. That's the one I thought of on top of my head. It's like I was really disappointed with them. All right. So yeah. Other than that, comment. Thank you, Ryan. You've got one commenter. I appreciate your comment. Besides that, yeah, definitely check out these albums that we talked about. I think they're definitely worth checking out. I didn't say my top. I had two honorable mentions. I didn't mention. One of them was That Stubborn Kind of Fella by Marvin Gaye. I had him honorable mentions. I really liked that title song. It was really good. And yeah, it was a pretty good Marvin Gaye album overall. Like I said, just not a lot of big stuff, just that first song, and then everything else was okay. And then the Fabulous Miracles by the Miracles. Also, I had my honorable mentions. They had that You Really Got a Hold on Me. It was a really good song on the album. That was like the big hit for me. Even better than the Beatles, I think. But then the rest of the album wasn't quite as good as that song. But still, Miracles are fine. They have good sound to them. So that was my two honorable mentions. I even forgot.
I think the Temptations version of that song is the best. You Really Got a Hold on Me.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my two honorable mentions off of my top 10. Anyways, yeah, feel free to comment what was your favorite albums from 1963. Love when you guys do that. There's somebody out there that does that, and I always enjoy when someone gives me their list and see what's going on out there. Are we in sync with other people? I don't know. I think some of these albums, I'm sure people agree with. Some great discoveries. I mean, Leslie Gore, I think, and Martha, it was great discoveries for me. So I really like that. Hearing some of these albums for the first time and going, wow, I'm glad we're doing this. That's why I'm doing this thing. I'm glad we're doing top 10s of each year so I can discover stuff. But anyways, besides that, thanks for watching. I guess have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you later.
Have a good one.